Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. It's time to discuss the issues of the day here at 1850 Main Street.
What's a pocket knife without a knife? What is the Boy Scouts if it's not just for boys?
Do either of you guys have a favorite pocket knife? Do you carry a pocket knife?
Since the airline world and all that stuff, I'm always afraid I'm going to end up keeping it in my pocket and then losing it. But I do like the little ones. I got to tell you, I like the small ones with lots of stuff.
Well, yeah. That's where I was going with this. Was my dad has always had knives on him for as long as I can remember. And I've only known him to go.
He's a technician. He's in the field. Of course, he's got to have like tools in his pocket.
Yeah, everywhere. And he always has the pocket knife, always whips it out. And it seemed like even when my kids wanted to open toys when they were 3 and 4 and 5, he would just open the knife and then hand it to, my son the correct way. And my wife's like, you can't give him that knife. And he's like, well, he's got to learn. But anyway, he lost his favorite one. I've only known my dad to go to one time in his life. He went to hear a president speak, and he went and he walked a long way. As you know, when you go to these events, you got to park far away, and he walked, and Bub had his pocket knife on him. And it was like a just forever walk. And it was it was at the air base, I believe, years and years ago in Trumbull County, Ohio. And he walked and he had to give up his favorite pocket knife because he wasn't walking back to the car and he couldn't get it through security. So anyway, that's the Rob Walgate pocket knife story.
That is good. Mine's not as good as that, but I have, to your point, Dave, I have had a pocket knife taken from me at the airport. I forgot it was on my keychain, and it was given to me as a gift, and I've never seen it again. So I lose them. I buy them, I carry them, and I lose them.
So I wonder if TSA regulations in the U.S. was really bad for the pocket knife business. I've got that sneaking suspicion.
Or really good for it because you have to buy another one. So maybe they're working hand in hand.
They're in cahoots.
It's a conspiracy.
There it is again. I got it figured out there. Well,
we're talking pocket knives because of an article that Alan brought to our attention earlier today.
Well, there've been headlines flying around, and it's one of those where it's a little bit clickbait. You see it and you want to not click, but you can't resist. And so basically the headline was, and there's variations of it floating around, but it was Swiss Army is going to make a pocket knife with no knife. So basically Swiss Army knife stops making pocket knives, and you're like, I've got to click on this. And so you click, and the headline got you. Whoever wrote the headline, on one hand, they deserve a raise. On the other hand, it's not entirely truthful the way it's always presented.
Somebody should be smacking them up the side of the head right now.
Yeah. The Victorinox company is not ceasing to make pocket knives with knives on them. But because of a lot of the anti-knife regulations in many countries that are being passed, they're going to make other options. So they want to make bicycle tools that don't have a knife blade on them. Because essentially, they're getting legislated out of existence. If your business is selling knives and people pass knife laws, well, you can't sell your product anymore. So they're pivoting a little bit.
Wow. Let's talk about anti-knife laws. They were anti-gun laws. And then in a lot of European nations, people began to be concerned about terrorism through the use of knives and criminal activity through the use of knives. So we've now see these countries passing anti-knife laws. And so sort of like the preschool reality, everyone in the class suffers because there's one person that doesn't know how to be responsible, doesn't do the right thing. Now, clearly, when it comes to criminal behavior and lethal criminal behavior, there's a much higher threshold. We've got to be very careful. I get all that stuff about taking care of our individual property and our bodies and loving our neighbors. We love ourselves. I get all that stuff. We're not suggesting that the world should have absolutely no regulation, period, at the end of the day. I get that. But come on, to the place where, I'm only going to say out loud what everybody else is thinking. Most of us, these pocket knives, they're what, about 3 inches? I mean, it would take a long time to damage a human with a 3-inch pocket knife if that was your choice.
If that, maybe 2 inches. I remember there's a very small classic Swiss Army knife. I got one for my 10th birthday. I got my son Ethan one for his 10th birthday, and I'm going to get Caleb one for his 10th birthday, and he can't wait. So
I have a feeling Caleb already
stop.
snuck one. He's got one hidden
It's
somewhere.
so funny that you mentioned that, Rob. He got me to get him a box cutter because I wanted to keep the tradition alive that it's a pocket knife at 10. So I got him a box cutter at 9, and he did cut himself with it. I will, full disclosure, he did. But he learned you cut away from yourself, not toward yourself. So,
and Mom was really happy with you, right, Dad?
Yeah, she's a great mom, so she lets that kind of stuff go on. But yeah, she wasn't thrilled with that particular.
And the nurse in the family basically was on call. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dad. Okay. So yeah, the point is that wow, people thought that the Second Amendment would protect everything. I wonder how long this is before the conversation comes to the U.S. on knives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look at the legislation of it in these other countries, I mean, we're talking about the pocket knives. We talked about the size they are. I mean, let's think about dinner knives and steak knives. They're all bigger than that. So what are we doing here? Is it going to be like we have 3-year-olds and we got to chop up everyone's food before it's served? I mean,
well, they don't want you eating meat anyways, Rob. Okay. So meat, that's bad for the environment. Yeah. So, okay.
Once again, the reality of politics seems to be intersecting in collision fashion with reality of human life. I never thought about that, Rob. I mean, literally, you just said it. It never dawned on me that the knife sitting right in front of me on the table is bigger and more dangerous by far than the knife that I used to have in my pocket.
You know, I shared with Alan earlier a story. The first time my wife traveled, I'll never forget it. She traveled with my family, went on vacation. We flew down and met everyone there. And this was it was in August of 2001 because we dated a year, and I know I'm dating myself and all of us, but I remember, and this was back in the day when you sent your suitcase or your carry-on through security, and if they saw something they didn't like, they had you pull it aside, and then they told you what pocket to open. Do you remember? Please open that pocket. Please reach in. You did it all. Now they do it all, but you did it all. And I'll never forget, Rachel, they told her yes in there, and she pulls out these giant scissors. They were like craft scissors, and they were monsters. And I'm like looking at her like, why do you have those scissors? And I remember, and this wasn't TSA then, this was just the security folks. They looked at her and they said, that's what we thought they were. You can put them back now. And we went on our merry way. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is great. Like, it just made a side note, like, how are, those could be used for evil. Again, it's the legislating of all this thing out. If we can't legislate out evil, you're going to have these bad things happen no matter what people have access to.
Well, this comes down to the whole concept of lawmaking. And can you, by law, prohibit behavior? Can you stop human behavior by saying, don't do that? Can you stop human behavior by saying, if you do that, then the following will happen? How do you actually deal with evil? And do laws have limits in their effectiveness and in their ability? So it's a bigger philosophical question on the construct of both human nature and the rule of law. Problem is, it's a lot more fun if you're a politician to just go out and crusade against knife blades. Because now it looks like you're doing something. And the people who are all riled up about it, sometimes say, well, this is how we're going to fix it. It kind of goes back to that naivete that follows with the utopian approach to the world, which is that evil can be simply dealt with. And gosh, what a downer. I mean, just think about how much life really stinks when you recognize that there's a force that influences people and people make choices. And those choices are destructive to themselves, destructive to others, oftentimes destructive to innocent people. How do you deal with that? I got to tell you, we used to deal with it in a lot different fashion than let's just pass another law, right?
Well, you used to deal with it in a different fashion than, hey, let's limit the choices of those that abide by or follow the law. We seem to be moving towards a society where you find a way to always say yes to those that are breaking the law, or the consequences for those that break the law continually aren't as harsh.
So you're always ruling to the exception.
You're always ruling to the exception.
Boy,
and
that's kind
who
of freaky.
defines the rules.
Yeah. if you do that enough times, then the people who are enforcing then have got like all the power, right?
Well, and you hear about that as well in education today. You hear teachers complain. They're like, whether they send a kid to admin and they're like, well, wait a minute. We just sent that kid down the hall to the principal's office and they came back with a lollipop and a sticker. Well, I got 23 kids in here that were following the rules. They didn't get a lollipop and the sticker, but the bad one I sent to the principal's office got rewarded. So how is this deterring anyone from not being bad? It doesn't work. But yet that's how we think we're going to treat people.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what's really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to the Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast, or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America's talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
Well, so we started this conversation talking about kind of a clickbait headline that's sort of true, not 100% true. This next one is actually true. Word on the street
100%,
is...
100%, huh?
Yes, 100%, unfortunately. Word on the street, Boy Scouts are changing their name. That sounds like a bad Babylon Bee headline to me. Of course, that's not going to... Boy Scouts are going to change their name. What's the need to change? You already have Girl Scouts. You can't have Boy Scouts? But alas, they are. Let me go to their website right now. If you go to scouting.org right now, a pop-up will come on before you can even get into the website itself. A pop-up window. I see people going to the website right now. Pop-up comes up and says, quote, "The Boy Scouts of America will rebrand," Dave, one of your favorite words, branding, will rebrand to Scouting America, reflecting the organization's ongoing commitment to welcome every youth and family in America to experience the benefits of scouting. The change will go into effect, get this, on February 8th, 2025. So they're going to continue to discriminate and be bigots for almost another year, but rest assured, they will cease to not be welcoming in 2025. You can click here to learn more. So that's right from their own website.
So if I go to learn more.
Yeah, what do we have on learn more?
Boy Scouts of America to become Scouting America, May 7th, 2024. This rebranding reflects the continuing efforts to welcome everyone to experience the benefits of scouting.
And again, I thought that that's what Girl Scouts was for girls. They're maybe even more famous than the Boy Scouts because of their cookies and all their sales. Was there something that wasn't being provided in Girl Scouts that is provided in Boy Scouts? Maybe can Girl Scouts achieve Eagle Scout? Maybe that's part. I think I have heard, if I'm trying to defend properly, I think maybe some people wanted that path to Eagle Scout. My fix to that would be make Eagle Scout a potentiality for Girl Scouts.
Sure.
Problem solved.
Though our name will be new, our mission remains unchanged. We're committed to teaching young people to be prepared for life. Interesting, they capitalized the word prepared for life, said Roger A. Crone, President and Chief Executive Officer of Scouting America. This will be a simple but very important evolution as we seek to ensure that everyone feels welcome in scouting.
Yeah.
So genderless scouting. Okay.
Apparently. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's what they want to do. It's a free country, right? They can do that. That's an approach. I mean, let's take a second to say maybe that should have been the approach from the beginning. Well,
I think that that could be an approach, but I do think that you might lose something if you don't have specifically gendered scouting. I think girls getting together and participating in Girl Scouts together, and then boys getting together and participating in Boy Scouts together, I think that there is something to be said for those uniquely sex-specific spaces. And then you could do joint events. I'm not saying you have to constantly be separated, but I do think that you lose something. Girls coming together. We just did a Mother's Day show, and you brought up the fact that mothers getting together have this unique ability and strength together. And so I think that you can say that for girls and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts.
So let me ask this question. If you can remember growing up, were there times that you were more comfortable in a learning experience and environment because it was all guys?
Yes. For me, yes.
And as parents, do you find the same thing with your kids?
No, well, I mean, I came up in athletics, and those are uniquely, well, they have historically been uniquely sex segregated things. We've done conversations and programs about what that's looking like.
Yeah, I came up in athletics too. I kind of remember I would not have wanted to have a lot of girls around at some of the time we got to junior high school football. It was not a place to be mixing up genders because things got pretty male specific.
It did. And I think that's, and I'm somebody who's very comfortable with being around, for someone who had just brothers growing up and just sons, I'm fairly comfortable being around just women. So half the time here at staff, it's just me and a bunch of different ladies. That's half the time, if you guys are off on assignment or something. So I'm very comfortable being around women, but I think that the world needs to have spaces where just women can go and talk about things that uniquely affect them, and men go and talk about things that uniquely affect them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And then you can come back together.
So what do you think is really behind this?
Well, Boy Scouts I think they filed for bankruptcy. They're certainly in financial distress, and they've had their own sort of abuse scandal has ripped through their ranks as well. So I think they're kind of trying to do some damage control, and a rebrand might help take a little bit of the heat off of some of the other serious issues that they've been having. So I think that's at least part of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the rebrand, the other issues have been a distraction, and this can hopefully help them in their minds turn the page, start a new chapter. And I think we've seen a lot of organizations, we've seen a lot of companies cave to this thought of everything being gender neutral, where everything's right down the line in the middle, and then young people can pick and choose what they want to be a part of or how they want to be a part of it. And I think it's going to leave a lot of unfortunately more young people confused than beneficial and helpful.
One of the things I like to do when we're together is grab a book off the bookshelf here at the American Mission Center, and happen to have the Boy Scout Encyclopedia. And I was never a Boy Scout growing up. I wish that I would have been that. Been on plenty of campouts and things like that, but I was never a scout. But I do have the Boy Scout Encyclopedia. This particular book was published in 1952. And I wanted to just read a little piece from the introduction of it. This is the Chief Scout Executive at the time, Arthur A. Shuck. And he describes the Seventh World Jamboree that they held in Austria back in the 50s. He says this, he says, "Picture the scene. A campfire amongst the mountains, thousands of boys, and upon a distant peak, an illuminated cross standing out from the top of the mountain. Over all shone the full moon, God's creation, and there below were boys of all faiths and all nationalities, the destiny of the world." So that was Boy Scouts. That's just a brief quote from the introduction. Boy Scouts 1952. They were already trying to be as inclusive and as possible as they could be under God. An illuminated cross and people from every nationality possible. That was a beautiful scene. And I don't think it's something that we want to lose in this country, an organization with the history and heritage of the Boy Scouts. It's just a sad day.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.